clothes designers, but no, I mean, what I'm wearing right now is just something I bought in a lingerie store.
What? No, what? I may not be up on these things exactly, but what would you
What am I wearing?
Yeah, if I went into a lingerie shop and I wanted to buy one of those for somebody. Now, come on, not for me, but for somebody.
They'd probably...
What would I call it? I mean...
It's called a bustier.
A bustier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ah, that's nice. Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Johnny Carson's smile never wavered on camera. For 30 years, America's favorite host welcomed thousands of guests with the same warm chuckle and Midwestern charm. But when the red light went dark, a different Johnny emerged. The minute we cut to commercial, his face would change, revealed a former Tonight Show producer. Johnny would turn to Ed McMahon and whisper something that told you exactly what he really thought about the person sitting 3 feet away. While maintaining a perfect public persona, Carson kept a mental blacklist of guests he considered genuinely intolerable. Not just difficult personalities or demanding stars, but people who crossed invisible boundaries he could never forgive. Tonight, we reveal the 7 guests who pushed television's most unflappable host past his breaking point, and the private moments that turned professional relationships into lifelong grudges. 1. Joan Rivers, the unforgivable betrayal. Joan Rivers had long been considered Johnny Carson's most trusted protege, a rising star whom he had nurtured and guided through the unpredictable world of late-night television. Their professional relationship began brilliantly in 1965, when Carson immediately recognized Rivers' fearless comedic voice and sharp wit. Over the next 2 decades, Rivers became not just a frequent guest on The Tonight Show, but eventually earned the coveted role of permanent guest host, a position that reflected Carson's deep confidence in her abilities. Carson's support went far beyond mere appearances. He defended Rivers' more provocative material when network censors challenged her, offered guidance on her comedic timing and delivery, and invested both time and resources into her success, something he rarely did for other guests. Their bond was both professional and deeply personal, built on trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. However, everything unraveled in 1986 when Rivers accepted a late-night hosting deal with Fox without informing Carson beforehand. The final insult came when he discovered the news not from her, but from a press release. In a rare display of quiet but absolute anger, Carson told his NBC staff, "Don't ever mention her name in my presence." From that moment on, despite Rivers' repeated calls, letters, and attempts at reconciliation, Carson never spoke to her again. Even years later, when they were in the same room, he would physically turn away, refusing to acknowledge her, a testament to the depth of his sense of betrayal. 2. Bob Hope, the legend who stopped listening. Carson respected Bob Hope, but grew deeply frustrated with him. Hope arrived with pre-written jokes and delivered them regardless of Carson's questions. Interviews became parallel monologues rather than conversations. "I could be speaking Mandarin and he'd give the same answers," Carson once muttered during a commercial break. As Hope aged, hearing loss and cue cards made genuine exchange nearly impossible. Carson remained publicly courteous but privately irritated. NBC royalty had to be treated with respect, even when the respect wasn't returned. 3. Wayne Newton, the Vegas threat. Carson's jokes about Wayne Newton's famously high-pitched voice were initially just part of his standard monologue routine. Playful jabs meant to entertain the audience without crossing any real line. Throughout the late 1970s and early 1980s, Johnny often incorporated lighthearted humor about Newton's voice and stage persona into his shows, poking fun at the singer's uniquely effeminate tone and flamboyant Las Vegas style. To viewers, these jokes were harmless, and Newton appeared to take them in stride. However, everything changed after Newton's 1981 appearance on The Tonight Show. Following the taping, he requested a private meeting with Carson, something unusual and immediately tense. According to multiple staff members who were present, Newton's behavior during this meeting was startling. He reportedly issued what could only be described as a veiled threat, implying potential physical violence if the jokes continued, and reminding Carson that Las Vegas was his town, asserting a subtle but unmistakable power dynamic. Johnny Carson, a former Navy man known for his composure and calm demeanor, was genuinely taken aback. 4. Shelley Winters, a hurricane on the couch. Shelley Winters ignored every rule of late-night television. Her appearances were chaotic, rambling stories, climbing on furniture, throwing drinks, and making political statements that unsettled Carson. The breaking point came when Winters threw a drink at another guest on air. Carson could tolerate chaos directed at him, but not disrespect toward guests or staff. When he learned Winters mistreated a young production assistant, she earned a permanent place on his mental blacklist. 5. Don Rickles when jokes cut too deep. Don Rickles and Johnny Carson were friends, but Rickles occasionally crossed lines Carson considered sacred. Divorces, children, drinking. Rickles targeted all three. During one appearance, Rickles ambushed Carson with embarrassing photos and stories without approval. "That wasn't funny, Don. That was mean," Carson told him directly, a rare confrontation. What saved the relationship was Rickles' sincere apology. Carson could forgive poor judgment, but not malice. 6. Truman Capote, brilliance and self-destruction. Truman Capote was literary royalty and increasingly unpredictable. Substance abuse turned interviews into legal and ethical nightmares. Capote began naming names, revealing secrets, and describing explicit encounters. During one taping, Carson cut him off mid-segment. After a particularly troubling appearance, Carson made a rare decision based on compassion. "We're not doing this anymore. It's not good for him, and it's not good television." 7. Madonna, the calculated provocateur. Madonna's appearance on The Tonight Show in 1987 was far from a routine guest visit. It was a calculated challenge to the very conventions Johnny Carson had spent decades upholding. Unlike other guests who occasionally crossed lines unintentionally, Madonna's approach was deliberate. Every joke, every gesture, and every provocative comment was designed to create controversy and push boundaries. Her performance was filled with sexually suggestive humor, double entendres, and shock tactics, forcing NBC's standards team to scramble for the delay button as bleeps punctuated almost every line. Despite the chaos, Carson maintained his signature professionalism on camera. He smiled politely, guided the interview as best he could, and never allowed his personal feelings to disrupt the broadcast. However, privately, it was clear that he was deeply unsettled by her performance. To Carson, late-night television had always been about charm, rapport, and connection with both the guest and the audience. Madonna's approach, where provocation itself was the performance, fundamentally contradicted everything he valued about the medium. He never invited her back to the show. This wasn't a matter of personal dislike. It was a reflection of a generational and cultural clash. Carson represented an era where entertainment prioritized grace and subtlety, while Madonna embodied a new generation that embraced boldness, rebellion, and shock as tools of expression. Their encounter highlighted not only a collision of personalities, but a symbolic shift in the landscape of popular culture. The man behind the desk. Johnny Carson never revealed his private grudges on air. Joan Rivers broke his trust. Wayne Newton threatened him. Shelley Winters created chaos. Bob Hope stopped listening. Truman Capote became a liability. Don Rickles crossed personal lines. Madonna challenged the format itself. Yet the audience never knew. That was Carson's genius. Absolute professionalism, even when the cameras stopped rolling. If you enjoyed this glimpse behind television's golden age, like the video, subscribe, and tell us which Carson feud shocked you most.